Hi there, and welcome to another success story. Today I have Maida with me, who is a mother of three and a full-time educator. She's struggled with hormonal imbalances all of her life, apparently, but we're going to dig deep. Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
You did, Maida.
Maida. Great. Great. Okay, so I'm going to start with the question I ask absolutely everybody. Why did you become carnivore?
It was really on a fluke. A family member of mine, I hadn't seen them in a while, and him and his boyfriend looked really nice. They looked good. His skin was very clear, and I was like, "What is going on? What are you guys doing?" And he started telling me about becoming carnivore. Uh, and I was shocked because, I've heard of and I think I've done almost every single possible diet you could known to man. So I've done keto, I've done all of those things. So he's like, no, I just eat meat. And so at first I was like, there's no way like that's healthy for you. Like you're killing me. And the more he started telling me like what was happening with his body and how his body composition was changing, he's like, look, give it a chance. He actually sent me a few videos of Dr. Ken Berry, said, listen to this guy, see what he has to say. There's a couple, the steak and butter gal too. Look at these videos and try it out. He's like, we did it for 30 days. That's all we've done is 30 days. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do a little research because I'm a teacher by nature and I want to research everything. I'm like, let me see if this is true. And the more I started watching these videos, the more I was like, wow, that's crazy. And my nature, actually, I love meat. Like that is like my go-to. I'm a savory girl, I'm sweet, a salty, not a sweet. And so I was like, maybe I could do this. And so after I've been vegan, I've been vegetarian, I've been pescatarian. I have gone through so many phases in my life. And so far I started October 1st of 2022. And I've been doing it this long.
This is brilliant. So it was literally seeing somebody looking pretty healthy made you go, what are you doing? Is that correct?
Absolutely. I couldn't believe it. Like I was like, because he's had skin issues and I've always had very horrible cystic acne my whole life. Hereditarily speaking, the women in my family, once their period begins, ends up with horrible period pains and excessive cystic acne, definitely a lot of balance, hormonally, like around the chin. So and he had that himself. And I was like immediately I wanted to know what was going on. So, yeah.
And I noticed your photograph, you've lost a fair bit of weight already. So to tell us how heavy you were and how light you've become.
So I'm going to give you a little bit more background is that I found out my mom passed away from cancer I think it's 96 is when it happened, February of 96. And my grandmother passed away from cancer that exact same year in December. And so I having several women in my family, now up to 6 women in my family, either be diagnosed and go through cancer or, die from cancer. It started kind of looming in my mind. So about 8 years ago, I went ahead and had genetic testing done and found out that I had the genetic markers of BRCA1 and BRCA2, which is breast and ovarian cancer, pancreatic cancer. I just won the genetic lottery when it came to cancer. So I started really kind of trying to hone in on what do I need to do health-wise? At the time, it looked like being a vegetarian was probably the vegan or vegetarian lifestyle is probably the best way for me to go. I had actually started doing keto prior to hearing this stuff. And I was actually like losing weight and I was doing workouts. And my body composition, I've always been kind of more of I'm only 4'9", so I'm a little lady. But I've always kind of held weight on me. I'm just more of a rounder person. But I really wanted to make sure that I got myself on track. And then I found that out. So I had been doing keto for a little bit, lost a little bit of weight. And then I was like, wait, all the research I'm doing is saying like meat is bad, meat feeds cancer cells. And so I went, I had my ovaries removed and my fallopian tubes about 4.5 years ago, and decided to go vegan. And I started noticing slowly but surely. At first, I was feeling really good. And then I started to, I didn't really realize it. I'm realizing the weight started to creep on. And from the time that I had my ovaries removed to October, I was close to 171 pounds. So I was pretty high. So 171 pounds. I went vegetarian instead of vegan because I couldn't not have eggs or cheese or butter, which are actually the only reason why I went from vegan to vegetarian. But I just realized the carb loading that I was doing that I didn't realize at the time. Like it was like the majority of the portion of my food was like some sort of carb. And then there was like vegetable. So even though it was like whole wheat pasta, like I was not really, I ended up gaining a lot of weight. And so as you saw in some of the pictures that I sent you, so I got very frustrated. And then probably after a year, I started knowing my cystic acne was coming back. So the first year was really good. And then after that, the weight gain, cystic acne, horrible menopausal issues. So depression, anxiety, heart palpitations, it was actually causing problems with work because then we kind of were in the midst of COVID. So I was doing a lot of meetings online and I was just a complete wreck and a mess. And I couldn't figure out at the time what was going on. So it was definitely a rough time. So since then, I was up 171 pounds. I was, in the 30 percentile with my BMI and whatnot. My visceral fat, according to my scale, was at 17. And now I got on the scale this morning, actually, and I'm down to 150. Is that what it said? 150.3. Yeah. And I put on a pair of pants, which is still a lot of weight for somebody my size at 4'9". But I put on a pair of pants this week that I have not been able to put on in years. So, I really don't care what the scale says. I fit into pants and my skin looks better.
That's brilliant. Yeah. Your picture, if you don't mind me saying, I'm assuming that's your husband. Has he done this journey with you?
Yeah. He's actually sitting right over there. Yeah, he started it with me because he knew how frustrated I was. And he was like, okay, let's do it together. And so he went from your typical beer belly gut that men usually have around this age. And he has lost 25 pounds. And what's your body fat right now? 15%? And it was like 28 or something like that. So
fabulous.
He's obviously he doesn't have the hormonal issues that I do. So he was able to lose the weight so much faster than I. And but I feel like we both still look really good right now where we're at in this phase.
Yeah. I mean, when I edit this video, that picture you sent me, if you don't mind, will be in the background so people can see the difference. Because
Totally.
both of you obviously have lost a lot of weight and you both look younger, in my opinion. Actually, that's one of
You
the
know what?
things.
It's very funny that you said that, because I've been showing. I was at a party just Friday night. I mentor a lot of my former students, so I become like an auntie to a lot of them, and I end up part of their lives. So I was at a family event for a former student, and they were asking me, like, they're like, you look really good. I was like, oh, I've been doing carnivore. I love talking about it. And I pulled out my picture and they go, that's you? You look like 10 years younger right now. Like, it doesn't even look like. So yeah, that is one of the things that we've noticed. I've noticed, I know it sounds silly, but I was starting to get like little wrinkles kind of right here around my face. And like all of that is kind of smoothed out. So it's,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I look different, but I feel better from the inside. That's kind of the part that has been great. I could get hung up on the scale. And in the past, I would, like 150 pounds. And I've been doing this since October and I haven't lost that much weight. Like the old me would have been like, that's it. I'm stopped doing this. I'm not going to do this, but I feel so good inside and I'm looking so good here that I really, right now, I'm not really caring what the scale is saying. I'm using that as a tool for myself.
Mm. Yes. And
But
that's one of the things I always say to people: get your health sorted first. And if you eat the right way, the weight coming off is a sort of side effect. It's not the goal. It just happens. And you have some much more major benefits. I'm going to pick up on something I saw on one of your posts in the Steak and Butter Gang and just go through 3 points that you said were better. So one was acid reflux. Do you want to speak a little bit about that?
oh yeah. So I've never had acid reflux prior to deciding to go vegan. I would have heartburn every now and then, but as the time started to progress, in those 4 years, my acid reflux and my heartburn started to get really, really like bad, to the point where I would wake up in the middle of the night and I'd be like trying to make baking soda recipe, something like I just anything to be able to. And at the time, I wasn't drinking any like cow's milk or dairy. So I was only having like almond milk and oat milk. So I was trying to down that, which I almost felt made it worse. So I wasn't getting the relief. So it was to the point where I was getting ready to see a specialist in regards to it. And so one of the videos I saw, and I'm not sure if it was Ken Berry or there's another carnivore I was following, and they were talking about it alleviating heartburn. And I was like, well, hopefully we'll see if that really happens. And literally crazy, within 2 weeks, I like noticed, I was like, wait, I haven't been waking up with like acid reflux or waking up in the morning having that feeling. So yeah, completely. I think once during my whole journey, so I'm assuming there was oil in what I ate because I had eaten out one day. And I'm not quite sure if they used some sort of seed oil in what I purchased, but that evening I started to feel some acid reflux. So I'm equating it to seed oils for me. But yeah, I haven't had any acid reflux at all since I started this.
Yeah, definitely seed oils are the culprits for many things, but I think the absence of amino acids from animal proteins as well, and also the essential fats, I think it's all of those things are helping you. You also mentioned bloating, so I wondered if you could speak to that as well.
Yeah, I've always been someone, and it became a part of who I was. And I know that I don't know how else to say it. Like I was just always used to, after I was eating, feeling very bloated and looking very bloated, almost looking like I was pregnant. So I was very careful in how I would wear my tops. especially when I was at work and whatnot, because I just instantly would bloat. And I at least felt like I had another like 4 inches around my midsection after eating. And it would take hours for it to go away. If not, sometimes depending on what I would eat, I would feel like that for days. So yeah, I really haven't had, and I really thought bringing back in actual cow's milk and dairy would make it worse. So I was very hesitant when I started back to bring in any type of dairy, because that was the one thing I did have problems with kind of my whole life. Not my whole life, probably about 13 or 14 is when I started having issues with dairy. And so I haven't had any issues really with bloating at all. As a matter of fact, it's so nice to actually wake up in the morning and not feel like I used to call it the Stay Puft Marshmallow moments of my life. And I don't have that anymore.
Fabulous. Oh, you have a cat as well as a dog? That's brilliant.
I have a farm here. I actually have 10 chickens as well. So I have my own eggs. Can you move?
Is the chickens something you've had for a long time? How long have you had your chickens?
I've had chickens for 12 years. I'm first generation Mexican. My family, my great grandfather was one of the largest ranch handlers in our part of Mexico. So I was the kid who would go to Mexico every summer and help out on the ranch and be with animals and chickens. So I think it's like in my DNA to have animals around. So I've had chickens for 12 years. And the beautiful thing is I get eggs. I don't eat my chickens. I can't go that far. But I definitely get a beautiful supply of very fresh eggs every day.
Yeah, fabulous.
Yeah.
Now, in your post that I was referring to, you said, and the best part is my panic attacks.
Yeah. Okay. So since going into menopause due to my oophorectomy, I've always kind of been kind of an anxious person. And I feel now in hindsight thinking like the heavier I was in that point in my life, I felt like the more I had like panic attacks or anxiety at that time. Because I can recall like a particular 4th of July, or I look back at the picture and I was like, I was really heavy at the time. And at the time I was going through a lot of like panic attacks and anxiety. And so it was happening a lot right after my surgery, and having my not having those hormones there. I was unaware of what going through menopause was going to feel like in my 40s. And I did not have a doctor who made me aware. My doctor, and I love her to death, she delivered all of my children, but pretty much she said, well, I'm not going to have to see you after this. So, because you're not going to have any other female issues. So I'll miss you. Good luck. That was pretty much it. No education into the fact that when you go into menopause, it like messes with your head in no other way that I've ever experienced in my life. So really bad mood swings, anxiety attacks, and to the point where I was having like physical heart palpitations, very panicky, very snappy with like everyone around me. I actually was in a Zoom meeting and I was like so irritated and like feeling like I had such a horrible anxiety attack, and I felt like they were talking about me, and like it was crazy where I like literally pressed end on the meeting and I left my work meeting, which is not like me at all. And one of the things I started noticing about 30 days into it, that I wasn't having those like crazy panic attacks. I felt more settled, grounded. And that has been really, really nice. And when I realized the difference is my best friend and I have this annual yoga trip to Big Bear, and they have a yoga festival for the weekend. And so I was really nervous because they only have like vegan food at the festival. So I like packed my meat sticks and cheese, and I took chicharron pieces, and I was like, no, I'm like going to make sure that I had like butter cut up in a little baggie. And so we went to dinner. It was a great day. I ate my snacks and I had a ribeye. And so I ate my food, not feeling guilty at all. But we always would go to this this winery, and we would have wine. And I was like, okay, we'll do our little annual little thing of wine where they bring us like the 8 glasses of wine. And I woke up at 2:00 in the morning inside a beautiful cabin overlooking Big Bear Lake with a complete panic attack and like heart palpitations. It was insane. So even though I love wine, I realized that wine does not love me. So I realized the sugars, I'm assuming, I'm making that connection that the sugars in wine, the carbohydrates, it sent me into a complete panic attack. And it took me about 2 hours to calm down.
Yes, I believe you. Yes. I've never said this publicly in this space, but I used to give guided tours around a vineyard in England because I knew all the science of making the wine, and I'd take people out into the vineyard. But I had to stop because I can't drink wine. Very similar, very similar effects.
Wow.
Not good for me. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love why wine grows like it does grapes and the mold on the grapes and, how it ferments and all that. I love to all that.
I have 40. I had 45 bottles of wine here in my house. And what I have been doing is when people come to visit me, I give them away as parting gifts. Thank you for visiting. Because I just refuse to do that to myself again. Like, why would I purposely do that to myself? And I've had a couple of times where friends have been like, here, just have a little bit. It's not going to hurt you to have a little bit. But it will, is what I have to say.
Yes.
It really does. And like, we have a couple of cute little towns around here. I have Temecula that's really close, which is like wine country. And we would always take trips, and I just won't do it. And I don't like how I feel. Like that next day, I felt terrible. I had bloating. I had a horrible headache, even though I didn't drink that much, but it was like a pounding headache right here, like on 2 sides. It's like felt like I had horns coming out of my head. I just felt terrible. And I didn't enjoy the next day afterwards, even though we had this like beautiful cabin and this beautiful view.
Yeah, I think that the headaches, I mean, partly why you get drunk is because the brain takes part in the metabolism of alcohol. But I don't want to get into that. And just for those people listening, I could not drink wine. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I never have. I've never really done well with it. And that was even when I was high carb, nothing to do with carnivore, low carb. It was when I was high carb and skim milk and fruit juice and all that. I couldn't handle any bits of wine, and it would give me headaches and stuff like that. So just to get to the nitty gritty, then more of the practical stuff, because people listening will be going, this is all well and good, but what does she eat and how often does she eat? So that's going to be my next question. Do you do 1 meal a day, 2 meals a day, or is it pretty fluid in your house? What do you do?
Well, right now we're following, I'm doing the Steak and Butter Gang January challenge. So I've kind of been following that. I just learned about priming with you and I can't think of his name right now. I'm blank.
Coach Raymond.
So I learned about priming. So when we first, when I just started the challenge, I went back I wanted to try priming because I'd never done that before. Well, I guess I had when I started in October, because my friends are like, you can have 3 meals a day, just it has to be meat. So I think that's how we did like the first 30 days. When I first started this, I was just having meat and butter and bacon And I reintroduced pork chops into my life, and I hadn't had pork chops in a long time. And I realized how much I love them. And that's all we ate: hamburgers, steaks. And at the time, I wasn't really worried too much about fatty versus lean. I was just removing carbs and sugars from my diet and just trying to get as much protein and fat in the form of either like using tallow when I'm cooking it, or butter to kind of finish off any of my meats. So I did that. We did that for the first 30 days. And then we started doing 2 meals a day. And it was a natural progression, because I started feeling like I couldn't eat that extra meal. Like I didn't need to eat breakfast, which worked out for me because I run amok in the morning. So yeah, that is what I was, that's how I started eating. And then, right now I started doing OMADs, the 1 meal a day. And that's working for me. My husband was doing the OMAD. We started it last week, but he walks about 12, 13 miles a day for his job. So doing an OMAD for him was like, he came home almost like woozy, and like he just wasn't getting enough intake. So he's doing 2 meals a day. And I'm doing 1 meal a day right now. I have tried doing a 24-hour fast every other week. And then this past week, I did my first 36-hour fast.
How did you find it?
Way easier than I thought it was going to be.
Yes.
It's funny though, because I got on the scale this morning. I told you I lost weight, but it showed that my body fat went up 10%. No idea why. I don't know if I'm going to blame it that my scale's broken, because obviously I fit into pants this week that I have not been able to fit into in 2 years. So I'm not going to take that information.
It's
It's
brilliant.
not going to do anything to me.
A brilliant answer, because this is one of the things that I bang on about. There's not one size fits all. That's perfect what you just said about your husband. More activity. He's on 2 meals a day while you're okay with 1 meal a day. You also briefly talked about the food freedom, which is one of the things that I think is big about carnivore, because you do the 3 meals a day and it's not about restricting, because you suddenly just think, I don't want to eat this much, or I only need 2 meals, or like your husband, oh, I need an extra meal. And it's obvious your body just reacts to what's happening, which is perfect. There's no script to follow. It's just adapting. I suppose we touched on drink a little bit, which was obviously talking about the wine and the bad effects. So what about drinks? What are you drinking right now?
Really, I only drink water. I do, being a Mexican, I do appreciate my tequila and my mezcal every now and then, but I'm not an avid drinker. So really I just have water. And I do a little iodine in my water. In the evenings, I'll do magnesium powder with some water. But I just have water. I don't have anything else. And I used to, it's funny because I was part of that. Like I told you, I've done everything. You must drink a gallon of water a day. I literally have a glass gallon that I used to carry around school sites with me everywhere. People thought I was crazy, and I probably looked like a crazy lady walking around with a gallon of water, but I feel like I don't need to drink all of that water that I used to drink. So I drink about 40 ounces of water a day. Sometimes I finish the whole thing. It's just a nice little cup now versus the giant one. And sometimes I don't finish it. Really it's very different. I find that I'm now listening to my body. I've never listened to my body before. I've always eaten. As a child, I would eat because my dad would tell me I would have to eat. You must eat this. Okay, I must eat it, or I must not eat this when I was restricting. I didn't tell you, in high school, I played sports. I was very active, but being, like I said, short and like 5 pounds made me look like I had gained 30 pounds. I I had a little bit of issues with food where I was restricting food for long periods of time. And then I would, kind of went through that very typical high school girl bulimia and anorexia issues for a while in high school. So I've never been ever able to feel hunger pains. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so I found the other day after I did my 36-hour fast, I actually felt like a hunger pain. And I was like, oh, I'm hungry now. Let me eat. So yes. I actually felt hungry. And then I realized there are days I don't feel thirsty. Like right now, it's very, very cold here where I'm at in Southern California, which is very unusual, but I'm not thirsty during the day a lot. So I drink the water that I feel like I need.
That's the way to go, isn't it? And you probably heard me in the meeting say this, that if your urine is clear, you're actually probably drinking too much water. Obviously, yes. If it's dry, if it's dark, then you're not drinking enough. But you just listen to your thirst, and it makes so much sense.
And I've not been aware of hunger pains before. So it was interesting. So after my 36-hour fast, I decided to actually do what Mindy Peltz was talking about, maybe bringing in like 5 ounces of meat every couple of hours after you come out of your fast. And I did that for 3 meals. I did 7 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock, and then at lunchtime. And I found by lunchtime, I was like, I cannot eat another bite. So I didn't eat for the rest of the evening. I had maybe 3 ounces. And then I was like, I'm done. I can't have any more. So it's just, I think that's been the big giant aha, is that I'm realizing when I'm actually hungry. That's been the biggest, like, I guess just, it's very cool. I've never felt like hunger pains or that horrible feeling after you eat where you just feel like so gross. I haven't had that anymore. Like that overfilled feeling. You know what I mean? I'm kind of like in the honeymoon stages of like understanding how my body actually is supposed to feel when you fuel it. Yeah.
It is amazing. It is amazing. And all the things you're talking about, we have little catchphrases from like, food freedom. You are free from all the sort of outside influences. You just listen to your body. You eat when you're hungry. You stop when you're full. You drink when you're thirsty. But we'll say it like that. If you wrote that down, people would say, well, that's obvious. But it stopped being obvious for a lot of people because they're eating the wrong foods and all the signals are all mixed up and it's crazy. So I don't really tend to go over about 35, 40 minutes. So is there any pressing things that you'd like to tell? Any tips or other news that you want to reveal to people?
I think really just being aware of that it's a journey. I think I like to quote Bill Murray and What About Bob? It's all baby steps. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's baby steps, baby steps. I think you have to give yourself time to transition into things. And I think you have to be kind to yourself through your journey. I still get a lot of people that say they almost like are irritated that I'm only eating meat. And you just have to figure out what works for you. I've tried lots of things. Carnivore works for me. And for some people, maybe pescatarian works for them. You just have to be okay with what you're doing. And I think it's really important to listen to your body. And that's what I think most human beings have gotten away from, especially in the United States. We do not listen to our bodies. And so I think that's a really important thing to do, and to just know that if you go through this journey, it's not overnight. I feel like I literally have just started this journey with you guys and learning about how I'm going to look and feel through carnivore. I think this is just the beginning. I don't think I'm nowhere near where I can be. But I'm very excited to see what's coming. That's for sure.
Yes. And I'm excited
thank you. Thank you to you and to Coach Raymond and to Bella just for all the information that I've been getting through this challenge with you guys. So I do appreciate it. I've learned so much more. So thank you.
Thank you for that. And I suppose I just have to do this. I'll do this point down here in the description here on YouTube. Unless you're listening to the podcast, there is ways to join the Steak and Butter Gang and to contact me as well. But I would just want to thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's a lovely story. And I'm hoping that maybe in a year's time, we can hook up again and go through your journey with a bit more experience. And would you be keen to do that?
I would love to. I actually want to do chisel. So I want to reach out and try that. And yeah, I would love to see, let's meet again in a year and see where I'm at.
So another thing that we were going to talk about was your thyroid. Would you like to just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. In my 20s, I actually was diagnosed with a tumor on my thyroid. So I went through radiation, which I'm sure messed up my hormones even more, going through such a dramatic thing. I had to take radiation pills and I was put through a machine, and I did that for a long time. They were able to shrink it, but from that moment on, I either had a very high thyroid or I had a very low thyroid. And so I was put on metformin for a while. I had to see a specialist, and my thyroid's always been a problem. And when I started kind of going into my journey in regards to trying to figure out what's going on with my body after my forced menopause, after my oophorectomy, I would ask my doctor, I'm like, can we get more tests on my thyroid, not just the T3? And I actually got pushback from my doctor in regards to that. He did not want to give me the rest of my tests. He said that it wasn't necessary, that it wasn't going to show anything. So it was funny. I've always had to try to almost fight with my doctor in regards to making sure that I'm healthy in regards to it. But my thyroid, also my anxiety was connected with that. A lot of my heart palpitations and whatnot. But since I've been doing the carnivore, I feel like I haven't had any issues. But I am curious to see what my numbers will be when I go back to the doctors in 3 months. So I do have an appointment in 3 months, and we'll see what the numbers look like with all of that. But yeah.
That will be something good to share, actually, because as a qualified phlebotomist, I'm very interested in bloods and labs like that.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see how doctors are very hesitant about certain, like if I'm asking you as a doctor for all of my panels, I was very kind of taken back that a doctor said no to me. I was like, but I'm going to pay for it. Like, he's like, well, it's not covered. Okay, I don't need it to be covered. I have a job. I can pay for it. No. We're not going to do all of those tests. And so it's very interesting to hear a medical professional say, no, I've never been told no like that, but I've never pushed. I've always left my health in the hands of a professional, thinking they are the most qualified. And I'm not saying they're not. Obviously, they go through medical school, they know their stuff, but I'm finding that I am the person who is the professional in what's happening with my body. So I've had to learn how to really push and ask for what I want. So I will push again in a couple of months and make sure that I get all the tests. So I'm curious to see what comes back with all of that. But again, I feel amazing. So I'm assuming everything's going well.
Yes. And that's the best thing to do, to listen to your body. Thank you for watching the video. It's much appreciated. If you haven't already subscribed, then please make sure that you do that before you go. And while you're here, I've actually selected another thing on my channel for you to have a look at. Give it a little click, see what you think.